Yeah. You have to be okay with not being perfect. You have to be okay with bad days. You have to be okay with bad reviews. You have to be okay. Like, you have to just let it all roll off your shoulder and know that, you know, God put this dream and this purpose in your heart for a reason.
Welcome to the Our Family Invest podcast, where we explore what happens when family, purpose, and entrepreneurship align. I'm Mike, a former Maui firefighter who reached financial freedom in just 5 years through real estate investing.
And I'm Caroline, a Maui-based realtor here to educate, empower, and elevate my clients to make smart real estate moves, whether right here at home or through my nationwide network.
Together, we're chasing our full potential as individuals, as a couple, and as a family. We're here to build a life that matters. And each week we share the stories of couples who inspire us to love harder, dream bigger, and grow bolder. So join us and let's learn, share, and grow together. Today we're excited to be joined by James and Sarah Bratcher, a couple who early in their marriage realized they had somehow accumulated over $150,000 in non-mortgage debt, and then completely wiped it out in just 2 years. Now they're building an impressive empire of real estate investments, a bookkeeping business for real estate investors, a food truck, and they've even acquiring a laundromat, all while raising 2 children, including a son who shares his father's rare bone disease. With faith as their foundation and intentional living as their roadmap, the Bratchers are proving that with the right mindset, no obstacle is too great to overcome. Get ready for an inspiring conversation about transformation, purpose, and creating a life you love. All right, you guys. Well, before we dig into the barbecue, the bookkeeping, and real estate, and I know that kind of sounds like a pretty cool book title, doesn't it? I want to know about each of you, but I want to ask you to kind of answer for each other. So, James, I want you to peel back the onion on Sarah. Who is she at her core? And Sarah, maybe you could start it off by peeling back that onion on James. Who is James?
So we are pretty much exact opposites. He's outgoing and stuff, but I'm the more outspoken one. And he is like the most mellow, like calm. He is the calmness to my crazy ideas and everything that's going on. And he's also very encouraging about it and pushes for it and everything. But he's just like, I don't think you could really get him too mad or like have too crazy of an idea. He's always just like, all right, let's do it.
Awesome. James, who's Sarah to you?
She's a visionary. She comes up with all ideas like she talked about. And she says, we need to do this. And I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. And the next thing you know, it's going on. She sent me a text the other day and said, hey, how about a laundromat? I told her what I'd give for it. And she shot one back. And about 5 minutes later and said, well, we got it $5,000 cheaper.
Wow.
Amazing.
Just happened.
Wow. That's great.
Love that. Okay, so take us back to, how long have you been together?
Almost 8 years.
Okay, so take us back 8 years ago. What was your first date like?
Well, 9 years ago for the first date, and married almost 8 years. We had known each other for a little while, but never like really had a great conversation or, just kind of in the same circles kind of. And then all of a sudden once, I think we started messaging on Facebook and then went on a date, and we were both late 30s, never been married, never had kids. So we were kind of both unicorns in the same kind of general area. He was from about 20 miles south of me and everything. So, just kind of started happening, and then we were like, all right, let's do this.
Wow. So what was that first date like? What did you guys do?
Went to a restaurant and had a nice dinner.
I think we ended up sitting on the back porch talking.
Yeah, it was
for the most. We may not even have finished it.
Yeah.
But then we just sat on the back porch talking well into the night, though, I think. Yeah.
That's great.
What was the moment, how long did you date where you decided, you know what, James is the one, let's spend the rest of our lives together? How did that come about?
6 months.
Yeah, it was only about 6 months. It was really quick. Like, we were both, like I said, well into our 30s. I think I was 37 at then and everything. And I knew what I wanted, and like there wasn't much guessing around and like, let's drag this on out and everything. And we both wanted kids and was wanting to try. And so we knew we had to do stuff quickly. And so we made decisions very quickly, and they've turned out great.
Got
Awesome.
married in June, and here we are.
All right.
Yeah, coming up on that wedding anniversary. Okay, so you get married and then you both had debt that was non-mortgage related. How did that come up and not come up before you got married?
It had come up, but just like the big number, it wasn't like fully addressed and everything. And like, I didn't even know my number. I just knew like I had payments that I made every month. And then I had gotten a car and everything. And we went to Dallas to an Eagles concert, and we put it all 100% on the credit card. And I remember thinking like, how am I going to buy groceries next? And I'm like, we make way too much money to be living this tight. And I was like, we need to figure out what our actual numbers are and everything. And honestly, it wasn't until a few months later that we actually wrote down our debt amount and our minimum monthly payments. Our minimum monthly payments were almost $5,000 towards all of our debt. Yeah. We had personal loans. I had a student loan. We had a car loan. We had lots of credit cards here and there. And, I was trying to play the hopping around game, like the 0%. And the funny part is I had zero debt for most of my life until like my mid 30s. And then I just got restless, I guess, and just was like YOLO and started spending. And, it
took me longer to accumulate money.
Congratulations. And yeah, so we were having troubles getting pregnant, and that was part of it too. We were going to have to put the process for like the IUI on a credit card. And I was like, wait a minute, we need a pause. And it was just kind of all of that happening in the same time period. And it was like, okay, this is making me stop and think. And then yeah, we decided to start tackling our debt, and then ended up getting pregnant naturally through it all. And just like, I think when we started the process, the stress kind of started relieving. And I didn't even realize we were stressed, or I was stressed about the money issues. Cause like I said, we were making really good money together, especially. But yeah, it just kind of all started happening. We started with Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And we were doing the baby steps there. And it took us like 6 months to get $1,000.
It's a while to get started.
In our emergency funds, what he calls it. Couldn't think. Yeah. And it was the mindset. We were both spenders. We are both big spenders and love to spend money, but usually on other people, not necessarily ourselves. We want to help other people out and do things for other people and give back and contribute. And so it was a huge mindset change. And like I said, we were almost $5,000 a month minimums just for our non-mortgage debt. Our mortgage was about $1,000 a month. And then we had to live off of that. And we did not have enough money to do that. So we were moving things around. We were getting very creative. And that's when we started like having garage sales. And like, I think in one of Dave's Financial Peace chapters, it talks about like, sell everything. Sell so many things that, the dog thinks he's going to be sold next. And it was that way. Like we started getting on fire, and it just started rolling. And then, we would ask each other and check in often, like, how can we make more income? How can we reduce our expenses? And we just kept revisiting that. And so it just kept going.
So I love that you were able to do that. And especially with starting slow by taking 6 months to get anything into an emergency fund, and you still had 150,000 plus paid off in 2 years. That's incredible. It's incredible. So take me through like, what was that mindset shift that had to happen to be where you went from being such big spenders to selling everything? Right. And what was it like? Like, did you enjoy it? Did it become a game at some point where it was like, how much can we save this month?
It did. And I think what hit me the most is, Dave uses biblical principles and Bible verses in there. And, we did grow closer to God during that time. And we were like, okay, we need to, we were kind of church hopping. We didn't have anything. We didn't have a foundation. And so we dug into that and, started just really hanging around and searching for mentors and other people that, had better habits than us and seeking them out and talking to them. And then there was a debt-free community on Instagram, and I found them, and I had a super secret account that I shared all of our numbers with and just put it out there to the universe. I don't think anybody looked at it for a long while. And then I gained some friends on there. And that's really kind of where because we come from a small town in Oklahoma. So like there's just the core people here, and it's hard to find a huge diversity of people. Like we couldn't even find a Financial Peace University group when we first started it. That one happened after we had taken it, but yeah. So we searched out Instagram and found a group out there, and they really kind of helped us and motivated us and got us there.
Okay, so I'm just trying to process that, because it could be a very big form of contention as well. But through the process, you both grew together, which is awesome. And you also sought out a community that could help you achieve your goals together. And so going from massive amount of debt and spending habits to now investing in real estate, what did that transition look like?
So I was working as a CFO for a real estate developer / investor, and we had grown his company very large. I was with him for 8 years, and at the beginning he was building 20 houses a year and had 50 houses in his personal portfolio. And after 8 years, he had almost 1,000 houses in his personal portfolio, and he was building 500 houses a year. Some of those for himself and some of them for other investors and everything. And so just watching him and how he created his machine and digging through there and everything was just so inspiring. And I was like, we could do this too. I mean, I didn't not maybe on that scale of the construction and everything. I was like, well, we could probably do this. And but it took me a long time to realize that we could actually do it. It was he had resources and he had a construction background and he had this. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am living my background here. I'm getting my experience here. It took me a while to realize hey, this is me learning about this so we can get into it. And then he actually, I forgot about this. He was against real estate investing.
Yeah. I didn't want to have to go fix toilets and stuff at midnight and all that. I'm like, that's not for me.
Yeah, he would say, well, so-and-so would always just complain about having to do this. And finally one day he came back with that rebuttal for the 5th time. And I was like, well, is old so-and-so still a landlord? Why did he never give those rentals up if he was complaining so much? I was like, I'd rather complain for 20 minutes about a tenant that, made about 30 minutes of my week horrible instead of working for somebody else for 40 hours a week. And he was like, wait a minute.
The answer to that was actually he's gave them to his kids now.
I love that.
So it's kind of a light bulb moment for him. And I was like, okay, maybe that was the first day I was like, maybe this is actually going to happen. And this was while we were still paying off debt. So we were just kind of making plans for the future and everything.
I think it's kind of ironic that you were a CFO for a real estate investment company, and yet you were drowning in debt, right?
While also making good money.
While you were making great money.
Yeah.
Was there some kind of light bulb moment that's wait a minute, what am I doing? How come I'm not looking at my finances here?
Mental health.
Yeah.
It was a big piece in it. I had some trauma in my mid-20s. And I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but I do want to talk about it because I think I think it needs to be talked about it. And honestly, I kind of forget about it until I tell my story. And I'm like, yeah, this is crazy. But I'm so far removed from it, almost 10 years ago, that it's just, I was not coping well with a bunch of stuff that had happened. And I started getting counseling and therapy and everything, and started, recovering from that and realizing oh, wait a minute, there's more to this world than, me and my pitiful sadness. And so it kind of boils down to that. But yeah, I had an accounting degree. I didn't yet have my CPA license when we did this. It was later that I finally finished my but in the middle of it, I was trying to get my CPA license, but that was hanging over my head as well. Cause it was like, I was telling myself, I'm horrible. I can't even manage my own money, but I'm managing millions of dollars a month for this guy. And it was a big, wrestling back and forth in my head, like I'm not good enough and all this other stuff. And it was, yeah, a lot of therapy helped during the time we were paying off that debt to help through that as well.
She told me one time when she was at work, it wasn't her money, so it's like she's playing Monopoly with it or something.
Yeah. Was there ever like a piece of advice that a counselor gave you or something that was kind of that I don't know, that crack that just opened up the egg so that you kind of realized where you were and could move forward and assess the situation more openly?
She, on several occasions, she had me step outside of the whole situation and had me talk to me like I was somebody else, like I was an outsider that had never heard my story. She was like, what would you tell someone that had, that you had never heard the story before? You're hearing it for the first time. What would you tell them? How would you treat them? Would you be down on yourself? Would you tell them that they were worthless? Da, 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 stuff like that. And she, I think she noticed in me, like, I think she's getting it now. And so she would come back to that, not every single session, but, and she'd tell me later that was a big part of it. But it's just me looking at it very objectively and not in the situation, and to look outside of it and, recognize the situation for what it was, because I tend to downplay things. I'm like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. And she's like, it is that big of a deal. You need to accept it as a big deal and that you're through it and keep working through it and everything. So I think that was the biggest thing, was just to approach all the trauma and everything that had gone on as if I had never heard it before, and how would I react hearing that from someone else. And it helped like really work through it all.
So I love that, because I think that, sometimes it's a lot easier to be that Monday morning quarterback, right? Or that armchair quarterback, I guess, and kind of diagnose other people's problems. But it's really hard to turn that mirror around and look at yourself. Right. And I think that the fact that she was able to kind of help you do that really resonates with, at least with me, as far as, sometimes I do have to step out and just like, if I were someone else, what would I tell myself in this situation? And that does help, at least helps me kind of look at things more objectively.
I think that also goes through motherhood too, right? We are our harshest critics, and that go between of logical stepping back, but also living in grace too, because we are so gracious to other people, but not necessarily to ourselves. So I'm glad that you were able to get to that point.
Yeah, we hold ourselves to the highest of standards and expect that perfection. I grew up with amazing parents. They did the best they could with the resources they had, and I know they did it from the heart with love and everything. But it was also like I was striving for more perfection because of, things that they would say and everything. And so it was like kind of like getting through that and overcoming, and they used a lot of fear too, like if you don't do this. And I think a lot of us in the 80s were raised like that. And so it worked for the time being. They just didn't realize what long lasting effect it was going to have. So, and I always say, I'm going to put my kids through therapy for totally different reasons than I am. So I'm sure I'm screwing them up too. I use it for business too. Like business, motherhood, marriage, everything. Like step outside and be like, okay, wait a minute. Is this too much for me to do? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this how I would advise someone else to do it? And I'm making a big decision in business this week, and it's been heavy on my heart too, because I'm having to make some big changes, but it'll be good in the long run, I think, stepping back and looking at it that way as well.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I really love about you and your story is not just from where you came, but that transformation that you had to go through, and you did seek out help to get there. But now you're also becoming the teacher too, right? Like I know you started like a bookkeeping course for real estate investors, right? And you've got your power hour and like, that's super cool, because I think, as real estate investors, we definitely need to know our numbers. And it's something where you get to a point and it's like the most dreaded thing in the world is taxes or bookkeeping, right? And so for us personally, like I get emails from our CPA. In fact, last week I got one. It's like, hey, when do you think you're going to have all your numbers in? Yeah, give me till Monday. And it's like, okay, now I got to go through all of 2024 stuff and like figure out what each expense was. Cause I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible at like, I have some receipts like in a file folder and bags and stuff like that. But like that stuff blows my mind. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And I want to know what brought you to creating the course and to kind of having like an online presence to share tips with other investors.
And also to break down, like you can already feel like our energy of great, our CPA emailed us. And we have great CPAs. So it's how do you break down that fear that people have with bookkeeping?
And that is what I ask myself every day. Like, how can I help people not want to like just run when they hear bookkeeping or taxes? I feel like, shout out to Amanda Hahn. I feel like she's done an amazing job at bringing it down to layman's terms and helping people understand it more and become more familiar with taxes and everything. And she's my inspiration for the bookkeeping piece of it. And it's just like, I've got to put myself out there to be able to make this change. And as to what Mike was saying, like what started out there, it's funny because I had hired a contractor early on to kind of help me with some cleanups and stuff, just help me get along here and there. And I remember saying to them, I was like, now I'm not a great teacher. And then later that night, I was like, I'm going to have to become a great teacher to own my own business and to grow a team. I didn't know yet that I was going to take it to Instagram and do all this other stuff and do a course and all this. I remember that day just like, wait a minute, I've got to change my language and be like, I am a great teacher, because I could tell how they received that information after that was not good. And I was like, okay, I've got to find a different way to teach this, and I've got to be a great teacher. That's the only choice here.
Yeah.
But then kind of over the years, I've had this business about 3.5 years now, almost 4. And I get a lot of calls of people who just have like 2 or 3 rentals. They don't necessarily have the cash flow to outsource their bookkeeping. There are some options out there that's like $97 a month, and they don't do much for you. Like, you still have to do a bulk of the work. And it's like, it seems like it's an extra step that may not be needed in there. Anyways, I digress. But I was taking these calls of these people that just needed help on like getting set up. And like, I was taking them because I felt like I could help them. It was taking up a lot of my times because we'd have a call and then they'd do some work and then we'd have a call. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to record myself and kind of cut down on some of these calls, and then we can, go into it. So that's kind of the model I grew into. Was I have the bookkeeping course, and then we have the weekly, I call it the power hour, where we come on and, you can ask all the questions you have that are, relate to your personal situation. And because, a bookkeeping course is great, but there's still lots behind it that you need to really get yours, because everybody's situation is different. Well, what if I did this? And what if I did that? And it's like hard to, it's going to be a 15-hour course if I include every what if. So that's what I did there. So it's taking off pretty good. I'm getting a lot of feedback on it. And I've had a lot of imposter syndrome because of it, because I'm like, wait a minute, who am I? I'm not here for this. And then I'm like, yes, you are, Sarah. Yes, you are. And I've got to speak my affirmations and, build myself up again and go back and forth on it. But then, yeah, so I feel there's a good need for that out there. And every day I tell myself, like, this is going nowhere. Nobody cares. Nobody's ever going to care about bookkeeping. But then I have to
I think more people care than you think.
Yeah, they just don't want to admit it.
They don't want to admit it. They don't want
the first to admit that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my arch nemesis is QuickBooks. I cannot stand it, and I will avoid it at all costs. So and I'm sure I'm not the only one like that. And we've tried a lot of different platforms to not use QuickBooks. But what would you say to the person like me who just despises QuickBooks? Is there an other alternative that will work the
So
same?
you need to join my power hour because we just recorded. There were a couple of guys on yesterday. We recorded it, and they're using one of the guys was using something else, and then yeah, I can talk about this for a long time. So usually there are a ton of options out there, and it's easy to get analysis paralysis on this. And he's probably fixing to go to sleep, but
All right.
stay with us. He doesn't have to mess. He doesn't have to mess with it because he's got
He's
somebody.
got you.
But anyways, yeah, there's so many options. You get analysis paralysis really easily. And I always tell people start with where you are. And if you're nowhere, just start with Excel or Google Sheets. It's free until you kind of figure out what's a good routine for yourself. I personally use QuickBooks because as someone who is in like 33 different books a month right now, on a regular basis, and then I have some quarterly, and then I do cleanups. So it's more than that a year. But I like QuickBooks because it integrates with a lot of third party softwares to help me run my business efficiently and effectively. But also I would still use it just for my personal stuff because I've used it for 20 years, and I think the reporting is the best for real estate investors. And I've heard people say it's a terrible setup for real estate investors. And it is clunky, and there's a learning curve with it and everything. But when you get to the reporting side, it's better than some of the Appfolio reports. Because like when you want to look like property per property, like month over month or year over year, I mean, you could do that, and then you could export it to CSV and like see everything, just a lot clearer, I feel like. And then I have some clients in Buildium, and their reports aren't the greatest when you want to dig down into a certain area and everything. And then if you want to like look at insurance and year over year and, months and all this other stuff, you can manipulate the QuickBooks reports so much. And that's where my passion for QuickBooks is. There are some other really awesome options that are coming out that I'm excited about. And if they can get to that level of like the reporting and stuff, I will, hop on board with them and everything.
For sure.
Stess is a big one that people are using. It's very user friendly, but it's almost too user friendly because you can accidentally, add stuff in or delete stuff out and everything. And it's not, you're not assured that you have the correct information in there because it's not a double entry and you can't reconcile. I've heard a lot of people talking about Baseline. I haven't used that one at all yet, so I can't speak on it, but maybe in the next couple of months I'll put one of our rentals on there because we have rent houses too, and put one on there and try it out and see how it goes and everything.
There you go.
But yeah, using the software is such a big discussion, and we could talk all day on it.
For sure. That's something like we started with Excel too, and it becomes a little bit cumbersome pretty quickly, but it still does the job, right? And I've tried Stessa, and it didn't really, at the time, it was kind of early on. It didn't really seem to work well with short-term rentals. For me, now we use Wave, which is pretty good, but it's still kind of like an Excel, if you will. I've heard good things about Zero, FreshBooks. I've heard some stuff with that would be interesting to try. I'm just trying to avoid QuickBooks at all costs. But to move on, because I don't want James to fall asleep, I do want to ask him about his job, because you said that you worked for 22 years at the same job, and then the facility gave you notice that they were going to shut down. Now, that's a long time to be working in one place and then having to kind of start over, right? So like, what was that like? What kind of identity shift did you have to make to grow and to move forward?
Well, honestly, we had sat down and was talking about trying to get me out of there in 5 years. So we set up a 5-year plan. I wasn't old enough to retire, 5-year plan to quit. And we started talking about that and trying to get some stuff lined up, and got called in the meeting at work one day, and they notified us they're shutting the plant down. And we'd have approximately 2 years left to work. And so I come home and told her that our 5-year plan was now a 2-year plan. And the bonus was we was going to get a severance out of it now instead of just quitting. So
Right.
That
it kind of out.
2 years? You got a 2-year notice? Like, who does that? That's amazing. And a severance package.
And I've got 1 month or 6 weeks of work left right now, and then I'll be through with it. And I'm starting
Incredible.
full time.
They did stay true to the 2 years.
Yeah, they're going to shut down in September, and I'm leaving a little early.
Hey family, real quick, if you'd rather watch your content, head over to Our Family Invests on YouTube. You'll find this episode and all our episodes over there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your takeaways in the comments. Now, back to the show. And okay, so how do you support each other's growth? Because you're both growing in different directions, but also together and for the same team.
We fell at that daily.
Yeah.
We talk about this. We are in a season, and we know we're in a season, and that we just try not to take anything personally, and just we're hustling. We have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I know they say to focus on one thing and go all in on it and everything, but we're in a position that we weren't quite ready. So we didn't find great real estate to purchase last year. So we started talking, and they say to find a way to monetize your hobby. So that's when we bought the food truck, because he was already doing barbecue anyways. And
Doing competitions for 15 years and cooking for everybody. So it seemed like the natural way to go.
yeah, so we got a food truck. It's not a full-time gig. It's just like, hey, if you need a catering and all this other stuff. And right now he's setting up like on Saturdays at some places to get his name out there more. So he would be doing that anyways, so might as well monetize it type of thing.
Yes.
And then that's why we bought the laundromat, to kind of transition out of the we still have our long-term rentals and our short-term rentals that do decent, but we just couldn't find and we were spoiled
on good deals.
We were spoiled on good deals through, the past few years until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so yeah, there were some that we probably would have bought 5 years ago, but we didn't want to buy after, being spoiled. So then we went ahead and bought this laundromat, for several reasons. We could do some more passive income out of there, like with an ice machine in the parking lot, and he could put his food truck up there. And when he didn't have anything else to do, he'd do it. And, it's not completely passive, but it's probably the most passive of any active business. Because you can find somebody to clean it and take care of it properly, you can get automatic locks on them. You can do card readers instead of cash, and there's lots of ways to make it more passive.
Yeah, that's something that definitely has been, we were interested in a few years ago. Actually, we looked into opening a laundromat in Kihei out here in Maui. And the numbers do seem to work really well, especially with how you can automate it. And that's a big thing for me, is like, how can I automate everything so I don't have to be there every day? So I definitely like that approach. And I certainly like the food truck approach as well, because, you guys were just out here. James cooked for us, and holy smokes, that was the best barbecue I've ever had.
And not to glaze over that, you mentioned in passing competitions, but you're the king of barbecue in your area. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I've just done pretty good.
Yes.
There are a lot of great people around here.
Great people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
He actually went to a competition a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, and I guess he's spoiled with the food truck, everything, and he didn't give his all. And like my sister, who had never cooked in a competition before, smoked him.
No way.
James.
You have your ups and downs. He can boast that he's had a trifecta before, which is he's gotten first in all 3 categories. But when you're not in the competition realm day after day, you kind of lose your shine. So.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to jump back here, but I did want our audience to know, how did you at least get the first rental while being in debt? How did that happen?
We had actually paid off our debt before our first rental.
Probably 3 months before.
Yeah. And we had been debt free for about 3 months. We had sold his dad's house. And so we had some extra income there, and we put 20% down, and then we paid, I think we had about 50 kind of upgrades and repairs and stuff. It wasn't a full renovation. It didn't really need that. Yeah, it just needed some shining a little bit. It was a pretty decent house. And we lucked out and got the best tenant ever. And yeah, and then he was hooked. He was like, let's do this 20 more times. Then quickly realized that those deals weren't as easy to find.
The next deal didn't make as much money. I'm like, hey, this ain't how it's supposed to work.
Immediately, but it is now. It is now.
Yeah.
Great. And that's the joys of real estate. Most of it is a long play. So great job. What's something you wish couples knew more about the journey when they're just getting started?
You have to be okay with not being perfect. You have to be okay with bad days. You have to be okay with bad reviews. You have to be okay. Like, you have to just let it all roll off your shoulder and know that, God put this dream and this purpose in your heart for a reason. And you just got to keep going. There's going to be the bad things being said about you. There's going to be things like, oh, you're just a landlord. Oh, you're just doing this, da, 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 da. And they don't know your heart. So they're speaking on their own experiences, not on your heart and your experiences. So you just gotta let it go so you can keep going every day, because it is, especially in the beginning, it's entrepreneurship and in all of these different ventures. It's similar, even with the food truck and, my bookkeeping business and rentals. It's, you get punched a lot.
You gotta have thick skin.
Until you really prove yourself. And so you just have to keep going. Yeah. Don't let it make you quit.
Yeah. And you said punch to the gut and you got to keep going. And I don't think that stops. But I think your experience and your confidence grows, and you are both stepping into a new form of greatness, which is super cool, which I guess that's part of the journey.
Yeah. What advice would you give to the couple who's, like you guys were, right? Like drowning in debt, doesn't know where to start, but they have big dreams.
Just start, because that's what took us 6 months to save with $1,000 was we probably spent 2 months of that just getting ready to start.
Yeah.
And mostly that was me dragging my feet. She finally got me on board and just start.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. I mean, even if it's just, 1% a day or 1%, a month, just keep moving the needle.
Yeah. Now that you're parents, you have 2 young kiddos, how has family shaped the way you approach business? 'Cause it's different when you have kiddos.
I was just telling him, was it last weekend? I was like, man, if we would have done all this in our 20s, like, we would be like banking right now. But on the flip side of that, we didn't have our why in our 20s. Like, I go back and think, like, I thought I was hustling back then, but I didn't want to do it for me. Like, I wanted to have fun. I was being selfish. And then when our 2 little whys got here, man, that kicked us in gear. And, James has a rare bone disease, and unfortunately our son inherited it. We prayed for years over whether to have children naturally and everything, and through advancements in medicine and treatments and everything, we decided we'd go ahead and take our chances. And there's a phenomenal doctor in Florida, and when Jack was diagnosed at 18 months, called down there, and the lady I was talking to, she said, well, do you have it? And I said, no, my husband does. And she said, I'm going to get your husband an appointment too. And I said, but he's fine. And she's like, oh, I'm sure he's been told no on some things and he needs some update. And he actually had his surgery like 6 months after that. Surgery on his hip that everybody in Dallas told him that there's nothing we can do about that. You're just going to be in pain the rest of your life.
Oh my goodness.
So they were able to relieve some of his hip pain.
They went in and broke my hip and put a plate in it and removed
Wow.
on the inside of a deal that was rubbing. And
Yeah.
put me back together and throw me in a wheelchair for 6 weeks.
And so and then he had his foot worked on, and we were scheduling another surgery when his job decided they were going to shut down. And long story, and prayer told us like, we'll wait until after he's out of that job. But yeah, so, and they're very proactive. Our son at 4 years old last year had the surgery to prevent his hip becoming like his did for 42 years. So Jack's not gonna have that pain throughout his life. And there's a lady down, it was Sarah, the first person I spoke to down there. She has MHE and her son has MHE as well, multiple hereditary exostosis. She founded 30 years ago this MHE Research Foundation, and she has been hot to get some medicine to help them. So MHE is basically, while their bones are growing, they don't grow smoothly. They kind of grow bumpy. And there's a medicine that will they lack heparin sulfate, and the heparin sulfate will help them. And I don't know the big details about what the pill is or the creams, and they have a couple of different things going. I don't know all the dirty details. I just know we're about 2.5 years away from that. And it won't help him because his bones are already grown and set where they are. But our son, whose bones are still growing, it will greatly help him. They had a trial drug.
Got shut down during COVID.
Well, it was when I called to get Jack's first appointment, they had it out then. Yeah. And we were hopeful that we were going to be able to get on it. But by the time we actually got to the appointment, they had shut it down. And I think from what I've heard, the people that were on that trial have had less surgeries than the people that weren't on it since then. So we are hopeful within the next 2.5 years that Jack will have that. Actually, it's probably closer to two now. A year and a half, 2 years now. So we are, that's another big reason why we're hustling so much right now, is because we want to be able to donate as much as we can to that foundation and just help them out as much as we can and do all that.
I love that. We went down kind of the rabbit hole yesterday looking up MHE and what it is and
we weren't
how
familiar.
We weren't familiar. And I love
aren't either.
Yeah, right.
Apparently, for James.
I mean, in a city like Dallas, if you couldn't find somebody to operate or to help, and having to go all the way to Florida, that's quite a bit. It tells me it's a pretty rare disorder. So I love that you're helping to try and raise money and raise awareness for the MHE Research Foundation. That's fantastic. And I also know, when you guys were out here, you guys are making some big changes personally, right? With, Sarah, you joined a fitness challenge, and James, you came with us on this hike that we did. And I think you said it was the first hike that you guys had ever done. And it was not an easy hike,
no.
Right? So
y'all were making it sound like it was easy. Oh, it's just like 45 minutes. And we're like, we can do this.
It's not an easy hike if you've never hiked before, right? Like, we're seasoned hikers. We hike all the time.
It's still a good hike for me.
It still is not easy, but it's not like, a 10 for us. But to take that as your first hike, super impressive. What made you decide to join a fitness challenge and really kind of change your life?
It goes back to our whys, that the 5-year-old and the 2-year-old, a combination, like, we're building all this, legacy for them, and we want to be around and enjoy it as much as we can as well. And we want to be able to say, like, I don't want to be on vacation and tell my kids, no, we can't do that because mama's got to go and take a nap, or because I'm out of breath and all this other stuff. I don't want to be that person. I want to have the energy. I want to do the things. I want to be the exciting mom and everything. And, we're getting into that age. Like, we went on vacation over Christmas, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is tiring me out. And we were in a golf cart, and it's like, I didn't have enough stamina for that. I'm like, all right, we got to do something here.
It takes a lot of courage to make that change, especially when you've kind of been set in your ways for as long as you have been. So definitely a lot of props to you both for that.
And I would just like to add too, The next day was a high intensity workout, which I have said no to many, many times over the years. And I said yes to that because of the collaboration and community. But James, if I remember correctly, you had said you were not going to join in the workout, but you did end up joining in the workout. What
He
made
kicked
you,
my butt.
yeah, what made you decide to say yes to that? Because it's not your fitness challenge.
Everybody else was doing it. I just figured I'd fit in.
I love that. So, which is testament to not only stepping into greatness in business and your relationship and growing together, but you are focused on your why. And if you don't have health, what do you have? Right. And so how has the trip, how has the fitness challenge, you're in Better Life, you're in Elite, you're doing all of these things to continue to grow. How has that changed when you went home? And are you still inspired to continue on that journey to the greatness of James and Sarah?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot more exercise and stuff.
He had ordered one of those boxes, like when we were in Maui, like right after we got through with it. I think we went out to eat after, and he was like ordering one of those boxes. And then it got here, and it was a teeny tiny one. So he was like, I got to get a different one. But that's
The new one
funny.
is on its way. I did finally get it.
The boxes that you
The
jump on, right?
Yeah.
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 Or step. Yeah.
This was like
I
for a
love
final
that.
one.
That's awesome.
So proud of you guys.
He still has his W-2 and working 40 hours a week. So we still feel like in the fire and engulfed in everything. But we've already talked about like, okay, maybe we could take up golfing like on Monday mornings when he's out or something and like walk at least 9 holes or something like that.
Yeah.
But we've had conversations like that. And we are still like really crunched for all of our time right now. But we're still fitting in walks in the evenings and
Great.
we're looking, our weekends are with barbecue right now, but we're looking at hikes in the area because we are going to do a hike.
Love it.
But yeah, we're still on fire for it, but we got to wait a minute to fit it in our tight schedule.
I think it's a lot like, when you started with the envelope process with Dave Ramsey, right? You started slow, but eventually it kind of took over and it just became a part of who you are and what you do. And I think that, fitness is one of those ways that you are investing in yourselves and in your children and in your future. And so I'm really proud of you guys both for doing that. And I'm honored that I was able to be on the first hike that you guys did.
Our son came home from school yesterday and he had this huge paper and I was like, what is this? And he was like, it's you and Daddy on a mountain in Hawaii. And then he had a house and I was like, what's this house? And he said, it's our house in Hawaii. And I was like,
There we go.
maybe we'll be joining Mike
There we
and
go.
Caroline.
Yeah.
Caroline, we may need a realtor pretty
Yeah.
soon because our 5-year-old's already got the house.
I'll help Jack. Yeah, I love that. You're already, that to me that is the icing. That is seeing your work, your example, your legacy in action. He sees that. He's already visionary. He has no boundaries with his dreams. And he's seeing mommy and daddy caring about their environment and their health. And that's super cool. So already impactful.
Yeah, I was crying. We went to Hobby a lot. I said, let's go get a frame for this. Like literally immediately after we pulled it out of the backpack, I went and got a frame and I haven't framed it yet, but I'm going to frame it and put it on the wall this weekend. And, like
Let's make those dreams happen.
Because we hadn't talked about it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And he just out of the blue remembers that 2 weeks ago, Mama and Daddy, we sent, I don't even think we talked about it to him in person. We sent him a picture that day or a video that day and then talked to him on the phone that night. And yeah. And then he brings this home and he's like, I want to climb a mountain in Hawaii. And I was like, all right, we're going to do it.
Let's go.
Before we went to bed last night, I found y'all's Instagram deal and showed her in the video, you and Nico and all y'all walking up it.
Yeah. Yeah, he can do it. Bring him out. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to lighten it up here a little bit and kind of start to wrap this thing up because I want to be respectful of your time. But in just one sentence, if you were to meet your younger selves on the road, what is one thing that you would whisper to them?
Save.
That's
I'll buy that.
What about you, Sarah?
Well, it goes back to our conversation earlier about the mental health. And I do this all the time. Like that was another thing. Like, what would you go and, if you were to visit your younger self and give him a hug, like what would you tell him? And, it's so cliche, but I mean, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just keep going. Just keep going. It's going to be okay. And like, I think that would have made such an impact on me several times throughout from all the trauma until I finally got, counseling for it and everything. Like just a hug and that said that I would have made so much of a difference in everything. But
I think bringing that full circle, because that is a response that we get quite frequently, is it's going to be okay. I think, now hearing that and resonating with that, I think when you're going through this transition right now that you're going in, and with all the fire that's going on in your lives and the what feels maybe like a tornado since you're in Oklahoma, is telling that to yourselves that it is going to be okay and that will come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We do, like I was saying earlier, we remind ourselves often that this is just a season. We'll get through it. And our son he's in speech class right now, and we were talking about it the other day, and he said it's just so hard. And we started having the conversations with him that, hard things are hard because right now is because that's unfamiliar and you're working towards something different. And then we started going back through, I don't think you were there on this conversation. It might've been this morning. We started going back to some words he was saying at the beginning of the year. And I was reminding him how people couldn't understand him as well, and how he would get frustrated and have to like find other words to explain himself. And I was like, you don't have to do that as much before. And I could see the light bulb go off, and he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, see, it's not as hard anymore. You just got to keep going. And I'm like, I need to tell myself that again today, because I'm having a hard week in my business, because like it's going to get better.
So true. So true. What is a person, book, or place that inspires each of you?
The Bible. Right now, like I was in such a scarcity mindset last year. We had Jack's surgery and then his impending layoff, and we hadn't bought any deals. And I was like, I gotta hustle on my business and take up the slack. And like I was focused on money and like feeling like there wasn't enough of it, and we're never gonna. And the fact of the matter was, we were getting our bills paid, so I mean, it wasn't that bad. But when you're in it, it's like scarcity. And I was like, how did I get here again? And then I went back to, our debt payoff, and it was like, wait a minute. Like, I wasn't focused on money then. It was the mindset. It was getting closer to God. It was getting in the Word. And I know everybody has all different kinds of belief, and their faith is in every different things. And I'm accepting of everything. But for me personally, it's the Bible and being close to God. And I started out on a journey to get in the Word every single day, and my abundance like has grown so much since then. And like we still, like, we're investors, we always have cash flow jugglings going around, but it doesn't stress me out anymore, because it's like, I'm gonna be okay. He's gonna take care of it. We're gonna figure it out, and everything's going there. So the Bible and James Clear with Atomic Habits
Great.
was the life changer, because it was like just that 2-minute, those little small changes. And
she made me listen to Atomic Habits on the way back. That was coming back from Austin one time. That was a really good book. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like everybody says, that was amazing. And of course, the Bible. And
I was researching Oklahoma stereotypes because, and I want to know
if they're
true or false. Okay, James, I know you're a man of very few words, so you can just answer true or false on these. Okay, there's 3 of them. So first one, Oklahomans will deep fry anything. True. Yeah, I think so.
And ask him if he's had.
Okay, so yeah, one of the things I saw deep fried in Oklahoma, gummy bears on a stick. Have you ever had deep fried gummy bear on a stick?
I haven't had that. I've had deep fried, like the deep fried butter, deep fried Oreos.
Deep fried butter?
Yeah, deep fried Snickers. Yeah, it gets in
That
there.
I could see.
had gummy bears, bro.
Deep fried Dr. Pepper.
What? I
Yeah,
don't know how that
Go
works.
State Fair and they'll deep fry everything.
They'll do anything.
Okay, so that was true.
crazy.
Oh my gosh, Nico would love this
I
place.
know.
But you need to ask about, smoking things. Like a bacon wrapped Oreo
Is amazing.
smoked on the grill is phenomenal.
That actually sounds pretty good. Next time you come out here, maybe
Yeah.
you can make that.
Well, they did introduce us to smoked pineapple and
That was really
papaya. I've never had papaya on a grill.
Yeah.
Neither in way.
Oh,
Yeah.
we hadn't either. We've had pineapple and peaches and mango and stuff, but papaya we'd never. And I was like, it's got to be similar. But yeah, it was
It was
good.
good with ice cream.
All right.
Okay.
Next one. There is a requirement to know who Will Rogers is in Oklahoma. True. Okay. Who is Will Rogers?
Yeah.
The pilot?
Cowboy.
His cowboy.
All right. He was the everything man.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And then the other one is Oklahomans
Yeah.
will watch tornadoes from the front porch, but a little bit of snow shuts down everything.
Exactly.
That's true as well.
It doesn't even have to snow. It's just got to be like, there may be snow in the next 2 days and everybody just needs to stay home.
Yeah, that shut schools down just in case.
I love how that like you're bringing the attention to the snow part of that and not the tornadoes that you're watching from the front porch. Like that seems a little bit more dangerous to me.
So our watching the tornadoes from the front porch days were over when we had kids, because then it was like, wait a minute. And you know, we've had a rough tornado season this year, the past 2 weeks. And I heard somebody talking the other day that like tornadoes 20, 30 years ago used to be like in the evenings at dusk and everything, but now they're in the middle of the night. And that's so true. It's like it's after bedtime. The kids have gone to bed and we got to get them out of bed and come in here. So it's harder to watch it on the porch even because it's dark.
Like it used to be.
It's not like it. Yeah, it's not like it used to be where you could see the sun behind it and
So
everything. but-
Oklahomans are shifting.
yeah,
That's up.
Yeah. Yeah.
shifting around.
Wow. Well, guys, we like to say we learn, we share, we grow. What is something that you've learned recently that made you kind of stop, breathe, and see life a little differently?
I've learned I can hike a really big mountain in Hawaii.
Yes.
You can
Yeah.
do things.
Yeah.
Love that.
We hiked a mountain in Hawaii and we threw a barbecue meal together last minute in 8 hours from home.
Yeah.
It's an ocean.
Using none of, we had zero utensils or
Equipment or nothing.
spices or anything. And
And you still crushed it.
And fed 30 people. So well done.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on today. You guys are amazing. If people want to connect with you or if they want to, check out your bookkeeping course or join the Power Hour or get some good barbecue in Oklahoma, where can they go to connect with you?
my Instagram is rei.solutions.with.sarah. And I wasn't on podcast when I picked that handle. So
We will
I'm
link
like,
it in the show notes.
I've tried to like change it and I'm like, it's in too many places now. So that's where we're at. That's the best place to find me. Send me a DM or message me on there.
Awesome.
Still old school. I got Facebook, Red River Barbecue on Facebook,
You're on,
on Instagram too, but I'm not real savvy with it yet. I'm working on that.
once he gets to where he's going to replace his day job with 40 hours of Instagram knowledge.
Social
when-
media. He'll
Oh
be
my gosh.
all over it. I love it. Thank you both so much. And we are excited to see where life takes you next.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so
Yeah.
much. Enjoyed this.
Thanks for being part of the family today. If you want a closer look at our journey through real life, business, and all the wild adventures, follow us on Instagram at Our Family Invest. And for free resources to help you on your own path, head to ourfamilyinvest.com.
If you like this episode, send it to a friend. And if you're feeling extra generous, drop us a quick review. It really helps us grow this community. Thank you so much for being part of our family today. We really, truly appreciate you.